All right, people, we're back. Another week, another episode of Lost. We're recording this on Monday morning. I needed a day off yesterday. It just happens sometimes. We're on season 1, episode 9, Solitary. We're starting to get, like I said, this whole month of October, we've been getting flashbacks into the secondary characters. We started with Charlie, then last week it was Sawyer, and this week it's Sayid. And oh man, the plot interest of these characters and their backstories, man, they just keep on coming. Luke, you ready to hit this week's episode?
I absolutely am. I do have some good thoughts on the episode to share, so should be good.
It's funny because we start off each of these episodes like, okay, like we got all the great episodes. Now it's just time for the rest. But I keep forgetting. I'm like, the first half of season 1, man, we were on a run for sure. All of that and more on today's episode of Talkin Lost. Stay tuned. All right, Luke, season 1, episode 9. This episode is entitled Solitary. This time we're getting our backstory on Sayid, the very capable, hands-on guy who's kind of been like the tech guy who's been like, I would say the most proactive when it comes to trying to find ways to get them off the island so far of this first batch of episodes. Obviously, the only thing that we've known about Sayid so far is that he was a part of the Iraqi Republican Guard during the Gulf War. And we see a little bit of that in this episode. But I think overall, my statements on the show so far and where we're at 9 episodes, 8 episodes if you combine the pilot, which we did. We're almost halfway through the first season, which is kind of impressive, honestly, after only 2 months. And the thing I can say now is, now that we're kind of past the first couple episodes, which I would say are like the establishment episodes, the homework episodes, there really wasn't that much that happened in them, if you will. Now we're getting into the fun stuff, because the thing that I forgot that I'm like relearning as I'm rewatching the show for the first time in 5-6 years when I first started watching it, actually go back further as to for when I started watching it. Now we're getting into the fun stuff. Now we're getting into like, okay, now we can play with each episode as we see in this episode. You know, we got a lot of hints as far as what's to come later on in the episode, as this is the episode, the big plot development that happens here. Obviously picking up after last episode, Sayid goes off on his own, discovers not only the source of the transmission that we heard in the pilot episode, but finds the person who made the transmission, that being Danielle Russo, who is, I believe, the first character that the survivors meet who was not on the plane. And Russo is kind of the guardian of the next threshold that I guess you have to cross over if you're looking at this in video game terms, in the sense of where beforehand, right, this was just a survivalist show. You know, they're on this random desert island. Nobody knows where they are. They crash 1,000 miles off course. Nobody knows if they're going to get rescued or whatnot. But now that Sayid has found Russo, now things have kind of ascended to the next level. Now they're like, okay, now it's not so much a matter of where are we. Now it's a matter of who are we stranded with, and like what's been going on this island before we got here, you know? Which was a question that obviously the audience didn't know about going into it. I don't know how much the creators necessarily knew going into it, and naturally it's network TV, so it's definitely, as we know about, as obviously us Lost fans know about the entire show, it's a matter of kind of figuring it out as you go along. Luke, I just wanted to know, before we get into the actual plot, what were your thoughts on this episode as far as like kind of finally starting to get into some more of the plot mechanics, if you will, of the show?
Yeah, very two-sided episode. I enjoyed both sides equally, but I do like how you said this is the next phase of the season. Like, we got the survival establishment, you know, everyone's chilling, someone in the cave, on the beach, whatever, and now we're getting into more of the plot with Sayid going off on his own, finding the cable, and then finding Rousseau. Hints of the others, as you call them, the White Walkers, as I'm going to call them, until we meet them. But on the other side, like, this is where I thought the show is starting to feel lived in. Like, okay, we're bored. We just need something to fill the runtime of the episode. It doesn't move the plot forward on their side. It's just, hey, we're going to build a golf course. We're going to play some golf. So just the island and the show feels lived in from this episode onwards.
Yeah, and it's funny because we were talking about this right before I clicked the go live button, which is that literally we're on episode 8, 9, right? And we're only now finally starting to like get hints at like the greater plot, you know, but we literally spent like just 8 episodes just spending it with these characters, getting to know them, you know, watching them like kind of survive in their new setting. And we were talking about this before, you know, if this show were made now, everything that we've seen in these last 8 episodes would be put into like the first 10-15 minutes of a pilot episode of a current Today show. As you keep telling me, probably the show that's the most indicative of ripping off this show, The 100, for what you've told me is notorious for this.
Well, that's from what I've seen. I know what's it called, Yellow Jackets. You mentioned is kind of like that.
Yellow Jackets does what Lost does not do, which is Lost, I will say, it takes a while. Like Lost, of all the things that Lost does, Lost doesn't show the crash. Yellow Jackets, what I'll give that one credit for is Yellow Jackets, you spend a bulk of that pilot like with the girls, and then the episode ends with the crash. And then you kind of spend like the next couple of episodes of that. So I'll give Yellow Jackets credit for that. But also, Yellow Jackets was not necessarily structured the way that Lost was. And while Lost was had a much more heavy emphasis on sci-fi, Yellow Jackets is very much obviously trying to be like spooky supernatural, you know, like, ooh, what kind of spirits are going on here? Versus Lost, as you see as time goes on, very much establishes, no, for the most part, everything that you're seeing that's happening on this island is tangible. It is real. These survivors are going through this, and it's much more of like of a science fiction element, especially once we get into the later seasons and things really start to pick up. But obviously, breaking down the major plot points. Obviously, like I said, we discussed Saeed's plot. Saeed discovers the source of the French transmission and the character of Danielle Rousseau. Meanwhile, back with the survivors, basically Hurley comes up with the idea of, it's like, look, we need something to kind of distract us, or else we're constantly going to be like worrying about everything and stressing out. It's not going to be good for us. So Hurley literally builds an entire golf course, and the rest of the survivors kind of congregate around and just start to have fun, you know? And then also Walt starts to bond more with Locke when he sees Locke throwing some knives. He's like, yeah, can you teach me, you know? And so that's kind of going on the fun side, you know? Like I said, it's still season 1 of Lost. It's still very much in the fun and games of it. We're only hinting at the more serious, greater plot stuff, but it still very much is a character-focused show at this point. And I like the golf stuff, you know? It's fun, and not only does it serve as kind of like a nice reprieve from everything that the survivors have been going on, but it also serves as a great like kind of unifying force for the characters, because as we see, obviously, Sawyer is kind of on the outs with the rest of the characters after everything that happened last episode. Obviously, Jack has kind of realized that he was in the wrong. Saeed definitely realized that he was in the wrong. That's why he went off on his own. And the thing that is probably like the most, I guess, like adorable, for lack of a better word, is when Kate's talking to him. Sawyer overhears that Kate's like potentially going to start betting on who's going to win at golf and whatnot. And then later on at the end, he shows up and he's like, I'll take those odds. I don't know. That was a nice little like unifying moment between the characters.
We're friends, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we may not still be like on the best of terms, but they're like we understand that we got to you know, right now we're kind of all in this together. We gotta make the best of all worlds, you know. And as Jack sees, he's treating another like hypochondriac patient who's worried about a rash of some sort, and he's like, oh God, is this really what all my years of medical school have made me have to deal with now? Just random rashes while trapped on deserted islands, or so we think. But
that guy was familiar. I forgot to look up.
He's probably been in a million things, if I had to guess. But let's get into it. Saeed and Rousseau. So obviously, Saeed is walking along the beach. He discovers a wire that's trailing into the water. He picks it up. He leads him into the jungle. He thinks he's clever, avoids one trap, gets caught in another one. Wakes up in some sort of weird underground bunker. He sees someone in the shadows asking him, you know, where's Alex? Where's Alex? Where's Alex? He wakes up and he sees it's a woman, specifically a French woman, that being the name of Danielle Rousseau. So Rousseau, like I said, I'm not going to get into like the full plot details yet, because I'll admit there's still a little bit of things that I'm fuzzy on. We do get her backstory later on in the show. And she does kind of tell us it, but the big thing that's established here that I think is cool is that while she does tell you her backstory, and eventually you do later on find out what was real and what wasn't, it's the fact that shows that, oh, she's been on this island a long time. Like they said, that transmission's been going on for 16 years. She has been here a long time. And the thing that I really like is we're still kind of in the ambiguous phase of, as we know, Lost is infamously known for not necessarily giving us a whole lot of straightforward answers to some of the mysteries that has been set up. But the thing that I like that they do here, and I think this might be part of us starting to unpack the show, and as far as why Lost may have been a little bit too ahead of its time as far as when it was on the air versus why I think it's aged very well. That being that we don't necessarily know if Russo's telling the truth. Because as she says about the rest of her crew, she says that she washed up on the island in a scientific vessel. She doesn't say it, but at the time she was pregnant. Her daughter Alex, who is revealed at the end of this episode, is the Alex that she's been interrogating Sayid about, was born on the island, actually. We'll get into more of that, obviously. And they washed up on a science vessel. She said that her entire crew died of some sickness, but then in the end of the episode, when Sayid goes after her, she reveals that, she killed them. She killed her husband. She killed the rest of her science crew because they were, quote unquote, sick. What was that sickness? We won't know until it's revealed later on. But the thing that I like about it is I like how, again, it's very much still maintaining that spirit of that Lord of the Flies, that survivalist aspect, where the things on the island may not necessarily be real. Obviously, like I said, it's kind of it's kind of the opposite of what I was saying at the beginning of the episode in terms of everybody thinking that, for the most part, everything that happens on the island is tangible. It is real. Damon Lindelof and J.J. Abrams said very famously that they did not want everything that happened on the island to be purgatory, which was a long-running fan theory for years. But at this point in the show, still this early on in the show's run, you still don't necessarily know if everything that you're watching is real, per se. You saw the monster that ripped the pilot out of the plane. You heard the mechanical noises and everything that's coming from the jungle. You've heard the whispers. But obviously, we know that people are also capable of seeing people who aren't real, as Jack has seen with his dad, and how there are a couple of other maybe specters that may pop up on the island going forward. So, Luke, what were your immediate thoughts about Russo?
Yeah, this unreliable narrator thing you bring, I feel like that gained popularity in the last few years. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it. I like to know what I'm actually seeing. But it was just nice to meet a new character. We've been with this ensemble for so long. When you do introduce new characters, it brings some new life into the show. But what Lost is so good at, it gives us something like an answer. We see who was sending a transmission. We got that. But then they throw out like, there were the others, and are you with them? And so it gives us a little something more. It opens one door, and then there's two more doors to open in the next room. So
one door closes, another opens, to quote a very famous Sopranos character. That's another show that I got to get you into at some point as well. If you haven't seen it already.
Let's get through Lost.
You're right. Let's get through Lost. I promise the Sopranos is less episodes. I can promise that. But yeah, great point that you brought up as well about the unreliable narration as well, because all right, I'm 50-50 with unreliable narration. I think as long as it works for the story, I'm good with it. My big thing here, obviously, is, again, knowing the lore and the backstory and everything that happens on the island. Like so many other things that I've said up until this point, it's so fascinating, obviously, going back and revisiting it and seeing, like, the different character perspectives on everything that's happened on the island. But you said it yourself. Probably the biggest reason why this encounter, this character introduction is so important is this is the first time where we hear that dreaded name, Others. Now, the Others, obviously, is a term that has been utilized in pop culture for a lot of different things. Obviously, before they were commonly known as the White Walkers in Game of Thrones, the ice zombies that resided north of the wall were referred to as the Others. And in fact, it's called, as I mentioned on my Talkin Thrones recap that I did 2 years ago with Professor Pat, there is a delineation. The White Walkers are the are the sorcerers, necromancers that bring the undead whites, or others in this case, undead soldiers, back to life. So there is a slight delineation, unlike on the island here, where when Russo refers to the others, she's referring to the people, the natives on the island. That's all I'm going to say for that right now. Obviously, they will make a big appearance going forward, but this is the first time, obviously, in the show's history and the recorded, that there's a hint of other people on the island. We heard about the smoke monster. We've been seeing little hints and indications here and there. The bodies in the cave, the plane, the luggage, the plane that Locke finds later on, the hatch, obviously. There have been hints sprinkled in, if you will, that there are, that they are not alone on this island. But this is the first hint that we've heard that there are other people on this island. And that's going to be, obviously, a big plot point going forward. But Obviously that's crucially important because the others prove to be one of the big staples of loss and kind of like, I guess you could say, the sequencing of events, if you will, as time goes on and as we learn more about the island. So as far as Russo introducing Nat, that's all good and all as far as plot mechanics go. But then obviously we get into the character stuff as far as her connection that she feels with Saeed, because the thing is, even though she's interrogating Saeed, and even though there's obviously a fact of she doesn't trust him, she doesn't necessarily know that, what's it called? She doesn't necessarily know if he's telling the truth about where he came from, because obviously she doesn't know about the crash. She hasn't seen the other survivors yet, but you could assume that she's had other encounters with the others before, which naturally is part of the reason as to why she is so untrustworthy of Saeed and probably just of people in general. It's why she set up all these traps and whatnot. But the thing that's established here is that both her and Saeed have lost loved ones who are very, very important to them. While Alex is revealed to still be alive, Saeed's unfortunately loved one, Nadia, who we see pictures of that he's been carrying around, whatnot, and obviously the message that she scribbled on the back photo is not, unfortunately. And so I really love the connection there. That's a connection that's going to continue on throughout the course of the show once Russo pops back up. I will say this is the last time that we see her in this season until the finale, but she does end up playing an important part as time goes on. For sure, as you know, as the survivors start to meet and get accustomed to the island and other people that are on the island. But what did you think of the relationship that's formed between Danielle and Saeed right here?
Yeah, I could definitely sense the foundations of something that might grow and evolve, either whether it's romantic or something else. It would just be something. So however that comes to fruition, yeah, like you said, they both lost someone they love, so they have that connects them. So yeah, she's a very interesting character that you said we're going to see more of, not for a while, but still. So yeah, and Saeed, we got his backstory finally, so we know a little bit more about what's going on with him.
Yes, we did, and it will
like we do every episode with a new character. Okay, that's why they are the way that they are. So yeah, taking off the lost checklist for each episode.
Indeed. Yeah, it's it is kind of convenient how all of these people who suffered through all these tragic backstories are kind of ended up on this plane. So like I said, we got Jack, daddy issues. Dad never took him seriously and everything, and then his dad died on a random bender in Australia, and he had to be bringing his dad back. Kate, who is on the run for reasons we still don't know what, but last we saw, she was picked up by a marshal and put on a plane from Australia back to USA. We still don't know why. We got Locke, who's a paraplegic, who was going on a walkabout in Australia, and then the crash somehow healed his legs, and he now has magically the ability to walk again. We've got what's it called? We've got Jin and Sun, who are this Korean couple who Sun was planning on getting divorced and going on the run from Jin after she discovered that Jin worked for her dad doing some not so nice things. You got Charlie, punk rock member, heroin addict, who obviously is very deeply troubled by his relationship with his brother Liam, who like I said, kind of unfortunately set him on this path to self-destruction. You have Sawyer, who is a man on a mission, who was trying to find the person who ruined his family's and therefore his life, and then unintentionally ended up becoming that person. And now we have Saeed, who is, again, as he was talking about, member of the Republican National Guard, very responsible for torturing, getting information out of people. He's very good at his job, as he said last episode. But obviously, he reached a crisis of faith, a crisis point, when he discovered that the next person who he was supposed to be interrogating was a childhood friend of his, a woman named Nadia. And eventually, he ended up gaining sympathy for her. You see him sneaking her food throughout the episode. And then finally, at the end, when it's revealed that she is set to be executed, he ends up helping save her to the point where he ends up shooting his commanding officer. Now, unfortunately, the other thing that I like, too, about these flashback episodes is not necessarily even that, obviously, we're finding out who each of these characters are, but it's also the fact that we're not necessarily getting the whole story, So, like, we know about Sawyer's backstory, but we don't know, but there's still a couple pieces missing. We know about Jack's story. There's still a couple pieces missing. Kate, there's some pieces missing. So even with these backstories as far as these characters, we're still only getting the pieces. And with Saeed here, he says that Nadia is dead, but we don't see her die in this episode. We just see him help her escape. She scribbles the message on the picture. He shoots the guard that catches them, and that's it. But we don't know how she died and everything. And obviously, it's funny too, because the message that she scribbles on the back of the card, and I don't remember if that's Farsi or Urdu or which language that is, but she scribbles, "I'll see you in the next life," which what's it called? Which obviously, as for all of us diehard fans know, that is very famously the catchphrase for one Desmond Henry Hume, who we're gonna meet in the premiere of season 2, portrayed by Henry Ian Cusick. He's another crucially important character, and his catchphrase that he was known for was "See you in the next life, brother." And that seems to be a recurring trend that may or may not have some significance for this show going forward. But yeah, what did you think of Saeed's backstory?
Yeah, it's tragic, but also, as it is for almost every character in the show. So I'm wondering how it all is going to come together, because I was watching this booktuber talk about a book, how flashbacks eventually all come together to make sense. So I'm just excited for that. Like you said, it's only pieces, because they got to fill the future episode runtime.
They got to fill that episode runtime. God damn.
I mean, there's only so much golf courses that you can build to fill an episode. So yeah, one of my favorite backstories that we've seen. So yeah, Saeed climbing the character ranks.
Indeed. Like I said, there's a reason why Saeed, I don't know how Saeed ranks in terms of everyone's favorite Lost characters, but I mean, for me, he's one of my favorites for sure. But for the thing about it is, again, it's like the fact that he is so charming, so cool, so level-headed, so quick to respond, seems to understand, because again, he's a guy who has, I would say, significantly more experience. There's a difference between him and the rest of the survivors. He's not just another civilian. He is a trained soldier. He has experience with this sort of stuff. So that already kind of sets him a step above a lot of the rest of the characters. But like I said, the fact that all these characters kind of, for lack of a better word, have their own unique set of skills that they all bring to the table, and as time goes on, the ones who, well, they may not have as much to contribute in this desert island setting, well, they don't stick around for that long, but the ones who do, they're the ones that stick around to the ending. And well, oh man, like I said, I can't wait until we're on the 5th and 6th season of the show, and you're gonna see everything that happens in it, and you're gonna be like, man, what weren't they just building golf courses? And I'm like, that was a long time ago, buddy. That's I'm looking forward to that. But
I told some family members that I'm going through it, and they said that they just didn't understand the ending. Like, they didn't tell me what it is, but they just didn't understand it.
Yeah, they didn't understand it. I will be very, because
I'll have to explain to them in 2 years. Like, so basically,
yeah, exactly. You're like, listen, I'm gonna be doing this for a long time, but in 2 years, I'll be able to tell you that it was all worth it. What's it called? Yeah, I still have my thoughts on the ending, on the finale. In hindsight, I first of all, it's not a bad episode like many other finales aren't, but I will say that I think that at the time, again, it's Lindelof and Carlton Cuse, his co-showrunner after J.J. Abrams left, were very much in a mentality of trying to have your cake and eat it too as far as plot structure goes. However, their ideas as far as what they were trying to accomplish with that last season in terms of, okay, we had our idea for what was going on. The audience obviously has their theories. We're going to try and set something up that kind of accomplishes the best of all worlds. And the results were what they were. Obviously, again, 14 years since the finale, we're gonna find out. But I will say that for anybody who has seen The Leftovers, which was Lindelof's follow-up show that he did for HBO a couple of years after the finale of Lost, the best thing that I can say is that The Leftovers is a much more streamlined version of what he was trying to accomplish with Lost, only rather than a desert island, it's we're following the survivors of the snap, essentially. And that's what The Leftovers is. I don't know. Have you seen The Leftovers?
I have not.
Very, very good show. Very quick watch compared to Lost. However, you definitely got to be in the mood for some deep, very existential, and very depressing TV, because those first 10 episodes of that show, oh man, one of the most depressing first seasons of a TV show I have ever seen, ever. But it's very, very good. Excellent acting across the board. Some good introductions that we get on the show. Margaret Qualley, that's Carrie Coon's debut performance. Justin Theroux kills it. Christopher Eccleston is Matt. Scott Glenn. The second season gives us Regina King and Hovana Depo. So yeah, some really good stuff on that show. Definitely recommend it. Before we get out of here, I just wanted to give a shout out to the movie that I saw this week. I don't know if Latvia got this, but I was able to see Sean Baker's Honora with the signature strip of 35 millimeter film that they gave me for my screening that I saw at the Angelica. This is Sean Baker's, obviously I don't remember what movie this is because he's directed a lot more movies than I originally thought, but this is his fourth, I would say, mainstream movie that people would start to realize. He started to gain some recognition with Starlet, and then obviously when he released Tangerine back in 2015, a movie about transsexual sex workers, shot entirely on an iPhone. And since then, he's kind of become known as the dude who makes like not necessarily structured movies that take place in like a real setting that typically follow either sex workers or people who are kind of on the lower end of the socioeconomic situation. Florida Project in 2017, Red Rocket, which made, I would say, some pretty big waves a couple years ago. And now he has Nora, which is probably his biggest and most mainstream movie yet. This is a movie that stars Mikey Madison as sex worker Annie, or Nora, as she is courted by the son of a Russian oligarch, I can only assume, who is kind of like a Gen Z spoiled brat kid who just wants to, party nonstop and have fun. And he ends up proposing to her in order to get an American citizenship. And then the second half of the movie happens, which is where basically his parents find out and send their handlers and forcers to go and take care of the situation. He runs off, and so Annie is stuck with two Armenians and a Russian as they're basically driving all over Brooklyn trying to find this kid. And that is essentially what happens in the movie. The best way that I heard described is that my friend Mike described it as the first half of the movie is a Cinderella sex worker story, and the second half of the movie is the most ridiculous episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia you've ever seen. It is hilarious. It is heartbreaking. It is tragic. It is a great homage to strippers. Literally, the entire first half just made me go, God, I love strippers so much. So much. And clearly Sean Baker does as well. And Mikey Madison, who famously has been known to, obviously she kind of gained some recognition as Pamela Adlon's eldest daughter in the show Better Things on FX. She became known recently for dying the same way in two vastly different movies properties, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then the Scream reboot, which Radio Silence did back in 2022, in which she is burned to death and dies screaming in both of those movies. Really weird coincidence. And here her portrayal of Annie, or Honora, is simultaneously vulnerable, but also hard as nails. She is like, captures just like kind of like that trashy Brooklyn accent while also having this like incredible vulnerability. You don't know a lot about her. You don't find out a lot about her character except from like sparse, backstory, whatnot here or there. But what I will say is that her kind of ability to go toe to toe with who you would assume to be like these serious like mob figures, but in reality they're kind of just like goofy guys. Like the one dude, this actor whose name is I'm gonna screw up his name so badly. It's his name is, where the fuck is it? His name is Karen Karagulian is just absolutely bonkers. It's absolutely insane. He's kind of like this this down on his luck, kind of stressed out handler who's like, I am so fucking sick and tired. I'll take care of this again. Every time this kid goes and screws up, I'm the one that has to handle it. I'm the one that has to clean up, and then I'm the one that has to eat shit from his parents. And it's just incredible. And the ending is one of the most depressing things. What's interesting about it too is structure-wise, the first hour plays out across a series of montages, so you don't really know like kind of how many days or weeks it's taking place across the course of, and then the second half all plays out in real time. Like it's all across the course of like a day, a night, or 2 days, what have you. So there's a reason why people are calling this one of the best of the year. I personally think it is one of the best of the year. It's going to get nominated for a lot of Oscars. A lot of Oscars this movie is going to get nominated for.
I think she's the front runner right now.
Yeah, which that would be cool. That would be, if she wins, I would be very, very happy. I would be very, very happy if that happens. Luke, have you gotten this movie yet or not yet?
We get it in like a month, so
okay.
I will be checking it out.
Yeah,
I want to give a shout out to a movie, a few actually. I finally watched The Substance.
Yes, tell us about it.
It lived up. Even with everyone saying, "Oh, the last 40 minutes are crazy," I'm like, okay, everyone's hyping up, not gonna be that crazy. And then there's the big like reveal. I'm like, whoa. Okay.
It's awesome.
Serious.
It's awesome, right?
As a big fan of The Thing, I had to, applaud that one. So
yes.
That's something to indicate what to get there. Maybe not like best of the year level. I just looking at some of the other interests in my top 10, Transformers, Twisters, obviously. But that's just me. The Substance is it my best horror of the year? Yeah, it is, because it's a pretty good year for horror.
Very
Um,
good year for horror.
and I watched two other horror movies. Speak No Evil, just randomly. Uh, I haven't seen the original Danish one, but this one was good too. James McAvoy, he's a little too good in this role, especially in the first two thirds. But the new release, this is one for all the Disney Channel original movie Lemonade Mouth fans out there. Naomi Scott in Smile 2 she's very good. I didn't really care for the first Smile, but this one, it with the pop star angle of it all. There's some really creepy stuff themes in here. I'm like, ooh. I've actually been scared watching a horror movie in this theater in a while, so that was good. There's, again, one for the Lemonade Mouth fans out there. If
Yeah,
you're
I've
just
been
looking
hearing
for
some.
a decent little horror movie.
Yeah, I've been hearing some really good stuff about Smile too, and I'm trying to think. I'm like, man, when was the last time that we had a horror sequel that was like well regarded and well received? Like only in 2022 could this happen. Yeah, or sorry, only in 2024 could this happen. You know?
And it sets up the trilogy finale in
Oh,
quite a way.
so they are setting up for a third one. Okay,
Yeah,
because
I think literally everyone that saw the trailer predicted how this was going to end, and yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the first one, so I'm kind of excited to go into this one blind because I remember the first one.
I think you can watch the second one without watching the first one.
Yeah, because I'm trying to. Was the first one 2018 or 2019?
No, it was like 22 or 21.
Oh shit! it was recent. Okay, yeah, because I saw the trailer for the first one, and I'm like, okay, this is the new gimmick. It's a spirit that's gonna possess people and make them smile until they kill someone. Okay. And I heard that it wasn't very good, and I'm like, okay, so I have no reason to see this. But first off, the fact that Naomi Scott is in this one, I'm like, okay, that automatically gives me an incentive to watch this one. Then I saw the pop star angle. I'm like, okay, this could actually be trying to be something that's actually trying to say something, you know? And then everyone's been saying that it's been great. I'm like, oh, great. So this is going to be like the First Omen, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to watch it. See, I'm planning on watching the First Omen sometime this month as well, because I've heard that one's excellent as well. And I'm also planning on watching Smile 2 as well. But I did want to give a shout out to another movie that I was finally able to see yesterday. This movie came out almost a month ago. I was planning on taking my niece and nephew to see it. And all I'm going to say is I watched this movie last night with my friend, and ugly tears. Ugly tears. That's all I'm going to say. The Wild Robot, one of the best of the year, easily. It's the best way that I can describe it. See, I saw the trailer for this, and I knew this was going to be great just based on the trailer and the music and the scenery and the animation. I'm like, okay. But then you actually see the movie, and right away, I mean, Lupita Nyong'o's performance as what is his character's name? As Roz, the wild robot that crash lands in the wilderness, is already heartbreaking enough to begin with. But then obviously the journey that she goes through, obviously, as she saves this duck egg that she then nurses and essentially raises. And this movie has elements of all the best that DreamWorks have to offer, your Kung Fu Pandas, your How to Train Your Dragons, and whatnot. But rather than going for the classic humor edge, which it has, this is basically DreamWorks. They're being like, okay, this is our attempt to do Pixar meets Studio Ghibli, and man, it hits all the heartstrings. It hits all the heartstrings. The score is awesome. The main song that they do is great. The voiceover cast, this is a cast that also includes Pedro Pascal as a mischievous fox who ends up joining up with them. Kit Connor, Bill Nye is an elderly goose. Matt Berry in a very comedic performance as a beaver that everyone's kind of making fun of for trying to take down this big tree. Ving Rhames as a badass hawk named Thunderbolt. Mark Hamill as a grumpy bear. Catherine O'Hara as a mom as a possum mom. It is absolutely excellent. It is absolutely wonderful. The animation is gorgeous. It's my number 2 of the year. There were a couple times where I may or may not have been crying pretty hard during this movie. But yeah, full send. 5-star movie, very, very easily. They say they are making a sequel, which rightfully so, because this movie was that good. But also, I saw another bit of news that like just depressed me a little bit and made this movie kind of a little bit more special. So a couple years ago when Soul came out, which was probably the last time an animated movie made me feel this way, I said that I'm like, oh, this is like the end of my era of Pixar. And so far, unfortunately, that has kind of kept up the track record. And I saw on the production page of The Wild Robot that The Wild Robot is going to be one of the last DreamWorks movies to be produced fully in-house, and that going forward they're going to be taking in a lot of external projects that are not made in-house. And that just that kind of wrecked me a little bit, because obviously in addition to Pixar, DreamWorks has been such a staple of my childhood growing up. So I just wanted to give that one a shout out. I knew it was going to be as good based on the trailers, but like I held off for a reason, and then just seeing it now, I'm like, man, this just hitting all the right ways. So yeah, The Wild Robot. It's my number 2 of the year, obviously after Dune 2. The easiest 5 stars that I've given since Dune 2 in the substance.
Yeah, I'll be watching that soon enough. And I want to shout out, I've been watching Arcane, and I want every single fantasy adaptation to look like this going forward.
It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
Which episode are you on?
I think I have 3 or 4 episodes left.
Oh, man. That time jump from 3 to 4? Who saw that one coming?
Well, I saw it coming because I know the main character looks different in the later episodes. I know that Ella Purnell voices her, so I was waiting for that jump.
Yes, she does.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. The story is living up to the animation, which is great. So I think this should be this. I don't want every fantasy adaptation to look like this, but this should be the standard for
well, forget every fantasy adaptation. I feel like every animated project going forward is trying to, whether they are fully CG or whether they are more traditionally hand-drawn. Like Spider-Verse really did blow open the doors as far as this being the standard for animation now, because between this, like Arcane, Wild Robot, Transformers 1, a couple of other projects we've been seeing, like this to me is the new standard for animation going forward. You know, even some of the Disney projects are.
Because I'm reading Mistborn right now. I'm just wondering, okay, what would Mistborn look if it was like this? I think they're trying to make a movie because
they are
live action.
They are, but personally,
they've been trying for years. But
I kind of want to see. Yeah, I kind of want to see Mistborn with this sort of animation. I feel like that would be a lot cooler if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm on the 3rd book, so
you're already on the 3rd book. Shit, I haven't finished the 1st one yet. Damn.
The second one's better.
Second one's better. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I'm looking forward to it.
It's slower, but it's better.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, we're gonna need to get Eli back on in order to like give us the full breakdown as far as books go, because I don't know if you can see in the back right there, but I've got a lot of books that I still need to make my way through. But
I have shift slightly to the left.
Those are all your books you're currently reading?
No. I'm reading 2 at the moment.
Okay.
I'm reading The Wager.
Well, I mean, you can see like all the books on my bookshelf like right behind me. You know, it's kind of a staple of this studio setup that I've had for the past 2 years. So, people, with that being said, that is it. That is mine and Luke's annual like kind of check-in where we talk about some Lost, we talk about some movies that we've seen, we talk about some books. We'll be back next week with episode 10 actually of Lost, Raised by Another, where we get into Claire's backstory as well. So that's going to be quite interesting, and we'll have some more movies to review. Luke, are you going to watch Venom: The Last Dance when that comes out next week?
I have my ticket for Friday.
I have my ticket for Conclave on Thursday. I don't
know.
You
don't get Conclave. I will be watching that instead.
Oh, man, you have fun with Venom. Let me know if it's a step up from the last one, because that last one was so bad. I'm like, man, I didn't think we could get that much worse from the first one.
I've only watched the second one once, and I liked it, so I'm not going to rewatch it. But I think this one's going to be fun. It's going to be a nice send-off. If it is a send-off.
If it is a send-off, who knows? But I think that Sony said that, like, after Morbius and after Madam Web was, like, the biggest bomb of the year, which I didn't even know how that's possible given that almost every movie bombed in 2024. They're like, we're probably not making as many movies so far. But, I mean, we all know that Venom: The Last Dance is just the warm-up for the now officially R-rated Kraven the Hunter, which is coming out in December. That's, I can't wait. But, like, what are the odds that they're going to end up pushing Kraven to January? What are the odds?
They're not low. I think
they're not low, but they're not high either, because like I've already seen like some trailers for some stuff that's coming out in January, and this coming January might actually low-key be good, because I don't know if you saw the most recent trailer for The Wolfman that Lee Winnell is directing with Christopher Abbott.
Long live the Universal Monster movie.
Yeah, and Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17 is coming out that month. I'm like, are we actually in for the first good January that we've had in years? So I wasn't quite sure about that. But yeah, needless to say, it's been a rough year for movies, but it's almost over with. But Luke, I wanted to officially extend the invitation to you to come on. Our kickoff episode, our official podcast kickoff episode for 2025 is going to be, we're going to be breaking down the top 10 worst of 2024. And I'm going to have a full-on panel for that. I'm going to have Kristen and Mac on for that episode. I need to have people who are going to bring the funny, though. People who are going to just like be ready to roast the worst of the worst. I myself I'm going out of my way, and I am watching what I call the trinity of shit that has made up 2024, all of which I skipped in theaters because I'm like, yeah, I'm not watching any of these movies. That being Madam Web, Borderlands, and the Crow remake. I'm going to watch all 3 of those. And if I'm still alive by the end of them, then, well, they're all 3 of them, I'm sure, will be heavily featured on my top 10 worst of the year list. But I'm sure that you've got a few stinkers in there
Well,
as
Dom, I
well.
can't guarantee I will watch all of those. I will watch some, like Madam Web, like just out of curiosity. I don't think anything can make me watch The Crow or Borderlands. I've seen those trailers 200 too many times. But yeah, I'll be up for that. My top 10 is not looking too bad right now. I just haven't watched that much. But,
it's funny because after September, I was like, oh man, I've got my 10. This is it for the year. And then so far, I have had how many movies have since September ended have made their way in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies make their way in. You know, as of right now, Sing Sing, I forgot, is currently not in the top 10. But yeah, Transformers, Saturday Night, The Substance, Anora, and The Apprentice. The Wild Robot, Anora, and the Apprentice all made their way in to the top 10. So we shall see where that goes. But Luke, as always, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
Mostly nowadays you can find me here, actually. And since you're already here, that's great. Otherwise, let's go Letterbox this week. Lucas ML on the Letterbox. Trying to watch some more movies.
Indeed. Like I said, you'll get there eventually, dude. You've got a long way to go, but I have faith. You guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. This episode will be available later today on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies, or in this case, watch more Lost. We'll see you guys next week.